Okay, this is an intro to technocreep. Introduction is always nice to kind of know who the heck is this, where is he coming from, and why is he here. So, I'll give you some background on myself. Start with a little example or analogy. If you were to go back in time, say 200-300 years, and knowing what you know now, and explain to somebody back then what you've seen and heard and the inventions you know about stuff, but the problem is you don't have a whole lot of education when you get back to the past. Something happens, you just kind of end up there. Some things you might actually be able to try and explain to people 200-300 years ago, and they might look at you and say, oh really, if that's possible, why don't you explain how? Like cars, cell phones, things like that. For example, you just tell them about an airplane. So, yeah, you can take a metal and shape it into an airplane and then fly through the air. Well, how do you make it do that? Ting. And you're like, well, propulsion. Say, what? Propopa? What? Propa? What? Propane? What? What's that? What are you saying? So they're laughing at you because you're trying to explain this stuff. And they say, oh really? Well, why don't you just make one of those things right now in front of us? And you're like, well, I really don't know how to manufacture one. Well, why don't you explain how that propulsion thing you're talking about works? And you're like, well, you kind of burn this gasoline. What's that? And you're trying to explain to them all this stuff, and they're like, and you can't really explain it really correctly. And say, well, what's that made from? You're trying to explain that, and they're laughing at you. And you're saying, you're telling me that there's a liquid that burns. Kind of like water. Hey, why don't you take this water and make it burn? Ha, 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 ha. You know, because that's what, well, not gasoline for airplanes, but jet fuel is still liquid. And you're trying to explain to these guys all this stuff you've seen, and they're like, you got a real good imagination there. And so, you know, they're making fun of you and everything like that. And it's kind of like you could understand if you went back in time, in the past, and tried to explain to somebody 200-300 years ago what you've seen and heard. You might not be able to explain everything, and so everybody would like be, what is that? How do you do that? Why don't you prove it? You know? And you're trying to come up with some way to do it. All you can do really is just explain. And there's really no way you can do that. And so that's where I find myself. I know what I've seen, and I can explain things to you guys, but I really don't know how or to tell you to manufacture anything, because it's the future. All I can tell you is what I've seen. They had a device one time. I'll tell you this interesting story. Time travel isn't like perfected or anything in the time I come from, but in the future I went through this device, and it was funny. It's like it gives you kind of like a snapshot of time. It's almost like you can see for a split second. The device, you walk through it and it can give you a split second into the future. I actually saw myself, and as soon as I saw myself, what I was seeing right in front of me, but not even maybe a step or a step and a half in front of me, I saw myself turn really quickly and then fall down. And at the same split moment that was happening, I was watching myself right in front of myself. It was like I was seeing myself in front of me. A split second from right where I was, and as soon as I saw that, in that same moment I was thinking, oh wait a second, if I can see myself in the future me taking a step ahead of myself, can I see myself behind me in the past looking at myself in this, you know, device? So I turned around and tripped and fell, and exactly what I had seen, it happened, and it was trippy. I'm telling you, it was just the wildest thing. So anyway, stuff like, gosh, there is space travel now. We've got a series of satellites. They decided to go in different directions, and as the satellites got so far out from the Earth, in the future, here's the Earth, and as the satellites get out to a certain point, they launch another satellite, and then that first satellite goes about the same distance out as the first one was from the Earth, and and they launch a second one. So the first one gets out here, and so there's a series of satellites being sent out in different areas towards the different galaxies and things like that to search them. And they're all programmed to use, gravity boosts from different planets and whatnot. I remember that. And this way, we keep it every so often when the satellite that's we've just most recently launched in towards a certain sector or whatever you want to call it, gets a certain distance from the Earth, where there starts to be a time lag from the communication between the Earth and the satellite. They launch another one, and basically what you got is a chain of satellites that are going out in all these different areas, and they're searching these different planets. They're naming all these new galaxies and stuff, and finding new planets. So let's say you get 3 of them out. Well, here's the Earth, right? Here's us. Whee! It's us. Yay! That's us. And I was trying to make it almost look like a happy face from sunshine or whatever. And these, as the signal is sent out, it's sent through all of the satellites. And each one boosts the signal for the farther one. And so this one, this satellite, this first one, we send a signal to that one, and it kind of boosts the signal just a little bit, sends it to the next one, which does the same thing and sends it out to the last one as well. And each of them receive their respective instructions that way. So we can actually get out to the furthest one instead of trying to cover all this distance with one signal going all the way from here all the way out to there with all that time lag and worrying about not getting real-time images from the farthest one we sent out. We send it to the closest one, which resends it, passes it on to the next one, which passes it on to the next one. And it's not instantaneous, but it works. And so things like this. And so I find it really hard, and people are laughing at me. I'm trying to explain things just like if you tried to go back in time to the past 200 or 300 years ago and explain to people what you've seen today. And so I'm having a hard time. And so I do my best, but that's all I can do. So anyway, I just wanted to give a little intro to that, and I'll be talking about some more things that I've both seen and well, I gotta go.